Welcome everyone to the regular meeting Monday, June 23rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. for the Village Trustees. Call the meeting to order. We'll start off with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. Anybody need to add anything to the agenda? No?
No, sir.
Okay. Number 4, public comment. Any comments from the public at the moment? Okay. Number 5, approve and accept minutes from Monday, June 9th, 2025, meeting as presented.
I'll move they be approved as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second to approve the meeting minutes from Monday, June 9th, 2025. Any further discussion about those meeting minutes?
Job as usual.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. And number 6, approve and accept village warrants through Thursday, June 19th, 2025.
I move that we approve and accept the village warrants through Thursday, June 19th, 2025.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second to approve village warrants through Thursday, June 19th, 2025. Any further discussion on the warrants? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Watershed Consulting to discuss Jones Court stormwater.
The best thing to do.
And you are?
Andres Teresa, Watershed Consulting.
Yep. Mike Teresa?
Andres.
Andre.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, happy to give you just an overview, and then I can talk a little bit about the details of what we're proposing. So my name's Andres Teresa with Watershed Consulting. So I've been working with the village on this stormwater improvement project at Jones Court. So the reason that we're doing this project is related to the state Act 64, the 3-acre rule. So the state had designated Jones Court as this stormwater jurisdictional area under this 3-acre rule. So essentially, impervious surface here is greater than 3 acres. It had an old permit which is expired, so now the state is requiring projects like this to come up to a more modern standard of stormwater design. So the deadlines for that, there's kind of 2 phases of deadlines. The first one was just kind of a reporting back to the state in terms of a notice of intent, and then the second one is actually a more formal, detailed application that actually includes the plans and the full application that the state needs to see, and then it goes through technical review. So we're kind of in that phase right now. So we have a concept design, progress plan set, and that's what we have here. And this is really, the purpose of this is really now just to get feedback, explain what it is, get some feedback from the village, the owners, so that we feel like we're in a good space to kind of firm this up, package it up, and send it to the state. The original deadline for all this was previously several months ago. However, just recently now, the state has kind of pushed the timeline of this program back, so the program is now requiring compliance by 2028. So there's much more time. One thing is that I also worked with the village to help with the grant, which was offered by the state, this POA grant, and that POA grant allowed for funding, to fund part of our work and then also cover the application fees for this. And that program still requires that a complete application is sent to the state by the end of this September. So there's been no extension on that. So they're really, even though the regulatory deadline is now out to 2028, in order to utilize the grant funds, we still kind of need to stay on a pretty quick track to get an application from the state. But none of these improvements will need to be built till at least 2032. So it's basically 5 years after the permit gets issued, so there's still a lot of time. And, you know, just another thing to note, not that we want to be revising things, but if there is some change in between now and when these have to go in, you can always do an amendment or anything like that. So there's flexibility to revise the application if needed for something came up or whatever, some change. Any questions on that, or before I talk about the design?
Nothing at this point for me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just talk about a little bit about the existing conditions on the site. So we did some comprehensive soil borings on the site, and I know probably the residents would be able to tell me the groundwater is very high, right? So there's some good sand material, but it's all very saturated, so the groundwater is very high. And that really limits the options on this site. And so what we were trying to do with this design is to try to help address some of the flooding, kind of basement flooding type issues that were kind of brought to our attention initially out here. Trying to think about ways to help address those at the same time meeting the state standards. So what we came up with are these series of these called these sand filter swales. So essentially, they're really just a kind of a glorified swale, a grass swale, but that has a sand layer underneath, and then under that is a stone jacket with a perforated drain. So there's a perforated drain that's set in the bottom of each one of these several feet below ground. And so that kind of serves two purposes. It would allow for the filtering of the stormwater through the sand, so when the water comes into these swales, it soaks in through the sand and then it gets picked up in that drain. But the other thing that it will help do is control the groundwater. So like in times when the groundwater starts rising up high, it will really be suppressed to that elevation of that perforated drain. So that should help kind of control the groundwater level at times when it's, you know, would otherwise be coming up high enough to create, you know, saturated conditions and stuff. So that was really kind of what we were going for.
It's the swales, is that what's in the center of the?
That is, they're not in the center. They're all along the edges of the road.
Okay, so it looks
Those
like
bolded
rings.
areas,
Yep,
yeah, the
okay.
rings.
Yep, I see.
Right, so those are
Sidewalk
all.
in the road.
Those are all the swales, and you can see they're pretty they're pretty shallow. So the swale would be a foot deep from the grass up to the top, and they would be designed to allow the stormwater to pond up to a level of about 6 inches.
Okay.
After which it would overflow, and anything below 6 inches would basically leave the swale by seeping through the sand bed. So that's how they work. So it's just taking that little bit of runoff. So, you know, at times when it would be really heavily raining out here, there would be some water in these swales, which would be kind of, you know, in the bottom of the swales. But then if they're operating correctly, the water would then seep away. And then during dry periods, it should like dry up better than it does now, because essentially there would be this perforated drain underneath, like a French drain kind of a thing. So, you know, these were also intentionally designed to stay within the road right-of-way, so we're not proposing anything on private land. And, you know, I've kind of been working with Public Works Director on this too. He's seen this plan, understands the concept, kind of worked with him to kind of finesse where these could go based on like where the utilities are. And so, you know, the maintenance of these, you know, essentially they're just grass swales. There would be a clean out at the end, and the clean out would allow to flush the under drain if you had to, like if it ever got clogged. You know, there's a design life, anything you do, there's a design life, 10, 15 years, if the sand bed kind of degrades and you're getting ponding in there, you may have to scrape it, put down new sand, whatever, revegetate it. But, other than that, cleaning the catch basins, but that's something that needs to be done anyway. So all the catch basins should be part of the maintenance plan anyway. They would all have like a sump and they'll catch debris and leaves and stuff, and over time, you would get a vac truck in there to clean those out. So that should be happening now, so that's no different. So the difference in the maintenance would really just be kind of mindful about the under drain and making sure that they're draining adequately, and if they're not, addressing it.
So are these perforated drains gonna be connected?
They're connected to we've located these where basically the outlets for these could connect into existing catch basins.
Okay.
So that they would core into an existing catch basin and drain, and then drain out through the stormwater system the way it does now.
Yes.
I'm looking at it, it looks like all the drains are on the inside. Am I correct?
Inside of what?
Inside the group? They're all on the inside, so that's inside, right? So if I'm on the outside, the water would have to come up the ditch, jump the road. I'm just trying to make sure.
Well, okay, so on this side, they're on the outside, right? And then on the northern part of the loop,
'Cause I'm
they're
right
on
here.
They're on the inside.
Gotcha, 'cause I didn't
Yes.
see that.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, there's two plants. There you go. So inside,
I got you.
right,
Yep.
yeah.
Because a lot of the water comes from the ditch in the back.
Over on
It
that
just
side.
sits there. You can't go, because the pipe's too high down here.
Where can you show me where? I just,
Where's that trail on here? Is it back here?
yeah, there's a berm back here, this whole berm.
Right, so this ditch
Yeah.
used to flow pretty good, but this is too high now.
Mhm.
It's been years that's been lifted, and then all of a sudden, everybody started pumping. I've been
Because
there
the
30
water,
years.
the water can't go that way
Right,
anymore.
you can't dig it anymore because it's higher here.
Okay,
That got changed down this end by
Mhm.
Hannaford's. So the water just sort of will run if it gets up high enough. If we all pump it out, it won't kind of,
right.
I mean, I have 3 pumps right now going.
What's the elevation you're talking about for the drainage system underneath the sand?
The drainage system underneath the sand is about, I'm just looking at one for an example, so the pipe at the bottom, it's a 6-inch perforated pipe, 152.8, whereas the bottom of the swale is at 157.6, so 5 feet, 4 or 5 feet, something like that. Yeah, so you would have like, a foot of, the swale itself would be about a foot, and then you would have 12 to 18 inches of sand, and then basically the stone underneath that, a foot of stone, and the pipe would be in there, so.
That's gonna drain directly into the storm drain.
Right.
It'd be nice if, because the ditch just sits there, mosquitoes, whatever, but if there was a way that in between the properties, a 6-inch could grab that water, now that it just sits there, and came down through and connected, so. The storm drain's right in my front property. There's no water going in that drain, even when it rains, as heavy as it rains, it doesn't run there.
I'd be surprised if it actually does sit there. I've never seen water sit
In the swales?
anywhere in Jones Court,
Yeah.
other than swampy area like behind my house and stuff, but other than that, it doesn't.
Yeah, because there's sand.
Drains, so it's all sand.
It all.
Yeah, well, that's
sand,
what I'm concerned about your elevation, because, you literally could dig 6 to 7 feet of pure sand, and then we just float. And I think that's pretty true for the whole village. So at 5 feet, I think we're still allowing the groundwater table to come up high enough that it's gonna affect our basements.
Yeah, we're limited by the elevation of the existing stormwater system.
Right.
Right, so we can make sure, I understand what you're saying, we can make sure that we're as low as we can go,
If they're cleaned out, storm drains are deep when they're cleaned out. You go
Yeah.
down there, it's down quite a ways. And I think the last one at the time they did mine was, Mike Bernard, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, so we can definitely look at that, cause there's no
There's some
restriction in making it deeper in terms of what the state would require.
Between my house and Granny's, there's definitely a pipe underground, because trees have never grown there, and I always try to keep it clean in case something comes up that someone wants to drain that ditch right to the storm drain, because it does flow there. Right now, it's sifting through the sand, down in the ground, through my footings. I mean, there's a flow like that coming in there to those pumps when those are high.
I mean, I'm happy to meet with you or whatever, just to go through it,
Yeah.
you can show me, I can mark it up.
It's worse this year than it was last year, but more rain this year.
Yeah.
2 years ago, the ditches were dry. I thought, now,
There's gonna be avenues so these can be flushed.
Sorry.
There's an avenue going to these pipes so they can be flushed into the storm.
There's a lot of iron in the ground, so they're gonna.
Right, the iron,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that, yeah.
Is there a reason that the ditch ends at the end of Jones Court? Somebody allowed, right at the end of Jones Court, going into Wheeler Round, that was all filled in. East Gaffrey's got a beautiful ditch that goes all the way to Spring
Whereabouts?
Street.
Whereabouts is it? Oh, you're saying over here by the
Right.
entrance?
my brother-in-law built
No,
your
I'm
house,
talking about the rail trail.
and there used to
Oh,
be water
okay.
running right through there.
So the rail trail at the end of Jones Court where it meets Wheeler Round,
You used to run right down that.
the ditch has been completely filled in.
There's some different water.
You can drive across it, if that ditch was there, then it would allow water to go down and hit Gabri's ditch as well, and allow us additional drainage. Does that make sense? It'd be open-ended.
Right.
I don't know which way you'd have to check the elevation there, I don't know which way that would flow, but
Right.
at this point, that ditch doesn't really flow at all. It's very, very minimal down towards Sanford's.
This ditch, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, who's, is that still your, that's still not, that's not Jones Court property over there
No.
anymore, right?
No, the stakes are actually in quite a ways,
Right,
maybe 15, 20 feet from the ditch,
yeah.
because the markers are still there. Which we consider, maybe even more, but the water doesn't care.
Right.
It's not forgiving.
So, there could be some ways to integrate some of these things into this design that might not be shown here now, depending, if there's a yard drain or something that needs to be done or whatever, we can look at that further.
I guess one of my concerns, we brought up the iron and stuff, it's 6
Yep.
inch perforated, is 6 inch big enough? Should it go 8, should it go 10?
6 inches the standard,
But what you're getting into is not standard.
That's us all.
that flock, the flock,
Some
the
are
pipes are
like
solid.
operated side PVC pipe.
really.
You replace it completely.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you go 8
Yeah.
or 10 or even 12, just, it's not gonna clog,
Right.
because there's a lot of
Larger
rust.
perforations.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at the brook that crosses, that goes by my property.
I have seen that, yes.
It's all rust.
Right,
It's orange, yeah.
Yep.
okay. All right, well, then, no, that's a good thought, for sure. I mean, there's no reason it couldn't be upsized. The state would, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
You said the pipes are gonna be down 154 inches or something that inch.
I'm just looking 4 or 5, 4 or 5 feet deep. Yeah.
That's from the road down.
From the bottom of the swale. Yeah, so you got, the way we have it right now, it's actually, so 12 inches of the swale, 12 inches of sand, and then another 12 inches of stone. It varies a little bit, but, that's general concept right there.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it would look like. So 4 inches of topsoil, 12 inches of sand, 12 inches of stone.
So what I'm saying is the elevation of the road right now, we walk out in front of the property, there's the road.
Right.
How much deeper is it from the road?
About a foot. Yeah. Down into the swale, where you reach the bottom of the grass. So they're pretty shallow. I guess on this side right here, it's actually closer to 2 feet. So it's 160, this long one right here on the end.
higher.
Yeah, it's 160, and then the bottom right here is, you know, the grass surface one. We have it at 157.7. So it's,
So does, with the installation of those swales and tying it into the system, does that meet the requirements for the state for the permitting perspective, or is there additional things that will be needed for that?
it should. The state will have the final word because we have to provide the justification to the state. And there's a few things that I have to justify. They may push back a little bit on saying that they want planted media versus like the sand. But I think because of the flooding situation here, like I would feel comfortable basically saying that it's not really doable to do that, because I wouldn't want anything that's gonna plug up. I think like a good sand would be the best, something well drained. So, you know, but what I'm saying is like they'll pick it apart, we get comments and,
I mean, the
Yeah.
proposal is to meet that requirement. I
Yeah.
understand there could be some back and forth and they disagree, but it sounds like the proposal is that would be the solution, and that's
Right.
the pathway that
right,
we would propose to the permitting.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
yep.
Any more questions, concerns?
I got a question. So, there's a lot of money, it sounds like, floating around with this project. Do you really feel that whatever the perceived resource concern is going to be solved to a high degree by this project? Is it really a resource concern that you found? Okay, you're shrugging your shoulders, that's not good.
I mean, it's a fair question. The state, the rules are pretty rigid in terms of what we need to do, and they don't really discriminate between a site like this, which is flat and already has these nice swales and stuff in it, versus a mountainside development. So there's a big spectrum of a project that would have to comply with these rules. And I think that, this is probably, in my opinion, the easiest, cheapest way to meet the rules. I think it will also help, and it will help to some degree, manage the water. But the overall benefit of water quality, I think you'll be getting a lot more on another property where you see a lot of physical erosion and stuff going on. It's just the reality is that the rules apply the same on both of these sites.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if there's not a resource concern that can be visually seen or quantified, why would the state forces the village to go to all this effort to do all this work, and it may not solve anything? It makes very little sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that frustration a lot. That's kind of why I'm trying to find other ways to make it valuable for you guys to, other than just that. I mean, I think that a sand filter like this does have water quality benefit. Like it will filter the water with the water.
You'll plug up so
Anything, it's like anything you do, it has some kind of a maintenance requirement. Everybody will be looking for something that's just gonna be hands off for 10 years, but it just doesn't exist.
I foresee it as not being maintenance. I see it as being a total redo in 10 years. I mean, if they're serious about it. If it plugs up with that iron, you're not gonna be able to maintain it without digging it all up and redoing the whole thing.
And that's the biggest challenge. It's the iron.
Really?
The iron, back, October when you folks were here?
Yep.
I had voiced my concern about the groundwater, that if you solve the groundwater,
Right.
you solve the stormwater. And it sounds like you may have solved both,
Yeah.
but now you've got the iron in play, and, and that's why I brought up the fact about bigger than a 6-inch pipe, because that iron, I've seen 6-inch pipes filled with that, and they're
Totally fill up.
perforated. They fill what they fill.
Yeah, well, upsizing the pipe for sure, and I can, it's something that like I've dealt with before. I just, to this extent, like I believe obviously we want that, so.
Yeah, but I mean, to Bob's point, we wanna make sure this thing lasts and,
Yeah.
you know, the permits, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill or Andre, the permit's only 3 years.
5 years.
It's 5 years, so every
Yeah.
5 years, it's
Yeah.
gonna be
Recertified.
Recertified.
Yep,
What do they do to be certified?
well,
They just.
Good question.
that's a good question. Normally, well, you never know, I guess is the answer, honestly. Assuming that nothing changes in those 5 years, it would be a simple application and probably a review and certification by somebody like myself to say that it's functioning according to permit, pay a fee to the state, and it'll be done.
Who owns the property?
They do, you know, they always have the ability to kind of change their rules, but I don't really think that that's likely. I think that they're gonna, what I've been hearing is they would
It's the wettest part.
more likely be roping in other
And that dumps.
developments which may not be in this program now, rather than changing the rules on ones that apply, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's probably unlikely, like, you'd probably do it for a while, yeah.
So what is the criteria? I mean, what separates Jones Court from, say, MBU or Linda Avenue? I mean, I would think if you stretch out Linda Avenue, it's probably 3 acres. What's different about Jones Court?
Well, so the reason that Jordan's Court is in the program is because it had the stormwater permit issued, an older stormwater permit, and that kind of was the trigger. Whereas you have a lot of other, and this is really the unfortunate part of this program, honestly, it's not very fair in my opinion, but there's other subdivisions that have never had a permit, and they actually are flying under the radar because there's no one lot that is 3 acres or more of the surface, so they're not being picked up by the state. But the ones that already have an older permit, that's the trigger for the program, so it's a little.
It should have been done by the first time.
Well, we didn't even know we were already permits.
We didn't even know we picked it up. The good news is you don't even own it. The responsibility we do for now. And you can have it back.
Especially, it's had to be renewed every 5 years.
That's a
And
charge.
last year was the first time I've ever heard of that, and I've had 2 houses, never been to 30 years. Never heard about watershed,
Yeah.
never heard about permits, refinance.
And it's funny, in my deed for my house, it says it right in there, HOA. And that was the big stop for me before I bought the house, and I went and saw John Boucher, and he says, there's nothing, there's absolutely nothing here,
It's never been.
never been. So we proceeded.
And there was pioneers where it had to all be wood, and then some people bought it for me, put it in vinyl.
Yep.
They said, I'm not doing wood, and just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
And nobody stood up, nobody said anything. So I said, okay, I'm doing vinyl too.
Yeah. I looked at moving in, but I had to do junk cars.
Yeah.
I hate paying.
I have to paint some of mine, you got like,
But my hope is that the village, once this is over and done with, that the village will assume the permit under their umbrella, and then we move forward just that way. And it's just a simple, there may be a small fee included, I don't know, but it's just, it's the simplest way to get it done.
Yep.
This will be by 20, when?
2032.
2028 is the application, but then you have 5 years to implement, so 2030.
yeah, so this September.
But if I may, trustees?
Yes.
So timeline though, we do want to avail ourselves to the grant funding.
Yes.
That timeline has not changed. So in good faith, we hired Andre's company to do just that. So we should move forward unless there's objections with this preliminary application to the state of Vermont. They'll weigh in and tell us if it's valid or not, if this plan meets criteria.
How long will that be as far as we?
Oh, God, who knows?
You used to work
It's
for
the
the
state.
state, you know how the
There's
state
a
works.
lot, a lot of time, but once we get it in, we have met our requirements.
Yeah.
Right.
Once it's approved, we have 5 years. Then there's 5 years to discuss many, many things, to include all of the communities in Vermont who are up in arms over this 3 acre rule throughout Vermont. It was in the legislature this year. There was no action taken, but there are many in the community that are gonna voice the same thing that you did.
Are we trying to fix something that's really not a problem, or not an acute problem? And are we gonna, it's a cost benefit analysis, are we gonna spend more than it's really worth, and it's not gonna fix the issue? So that's an argument to be had, but we have 5 years to have that argument. With that being said, in a project world, 5 years is like tomorrow.
So if we submit the application by September, it can be amended over the next 5 years?
Sure.
Okay.
And submitting, keeping on that deadline will also allow, you know, our fees, and then also the application fee, which is pretty significant. Basically, the state picks that up too, so makes sense to just move ahead at this point.
There's probably 200 communities calling for a funding source in the future to actually pay for solutions like we're proposing. I would not hold your breath on that happening. I don't think there's an available $1 billion, $500 million to fix this statewide. Is my guess. Once again though, do you really just want to own it back, sign away right now, create an HOA, there's a quorum, and we give it back to you?
Sorry, we have to go.
I recuse myself.
I had me a little nervous, to tell you the truth, because the last meeting I came to here, it sounded very wishy-washy as to who was gonna pay the bill on this thing. It was very, very wishy-washy, so as long as you guys are saying the village takes responsibility, I'm happy.
Don't stop making eye contact with me, sir, look at the board. I just work here.
It's gonna be hard to sell property if things don't go the right way.
Yeah.
And I'm about to. Good year.
Yeah.
Right.
You just go there.
And where my property is, it's part of the subdivision, even though I've.
Which one?
So, but,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
see you here.
I'm in the corner, but, you know, it's a challenge.
You get water in that, the old house?
Never had water.
Yeah.
Never had water. It's too
Correct
hot.
me, correct me if I'm
Oh,
wrong,
you could. It's right next to
most of the water is on the, rail trail end of the development, is that where?
No,
No, the inside's getting hammered.
No?
no,
It's the whole development is wet?
Yep.
I think anywhere in the development can be wet. I don't know how many houses are wet,
I
but
bet there's 17 or 18 out
Yeah.
of 33 or whatever.
So this is just gonna handle stormwater, it's nothing to do with groundwater then?
Well, it will, I mean, those perforated drains underneath, the idea is that they would help control the groundwater as well. So they would allow the stormwater to filter down, but then
If you're-
also,
Yeah, if your filter pipe is low enough, if not, they'll still have to pump.
right.
Right.
right, so I can look at that just to see the bare minimum that we can go low-wise, you know, with respect to the elevations on the existing stormwater system that we're draining into.
Right.
Did you do a study on what the average water table depth was?
Yeah, I don't know, I can't remember what it is offhand, but we did 4 or 5 soil borings all the way around, we have it documented. I mean, it's within a few feet, it's not deep, as you know. And there, you know, even if the static water table's out there, there's indications that at times of the year it comes up.
Yeah, 'cause I had one, I was gonna do a drain to go to my outside drain.
Yeah.
Started digging down, about 2 feet from the footing, totally wet.
Right.
It's 2 feet right now. If that.
So, you know, so even these drains, you know, 3 or 4 feet down, I mean, that will, you know, you look in, like, they should be running at times of the year to, and, you know, they'll control that groundwater table, so, I mean, it will help.
But I had the drum come up and flush the lines out. Okay, $500 at shop. So I ended up going online, buying 100-foot that goes onto my pressure washer. It's the same exact thing. Every 4 months, I tried to go as long as I could. I went 9 months and I see some water coming in. Once I did that around the drains, I had no
Fine.
problem. Fine.
Yeah.
So there's water there,
You know,
but it's plugging up with sand.
I mean, with the iron too, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it could be that, you know, part of, everything the state will require that there's an operation and maintenance plan associated with these, so maybe it's a larger diameter pipe, but then there's frequent flushing, maybe that happens every other year or whatever. You know, it's jet, and it's designed so you can actually jet it out, proactively clean it before it becomes an issue. You know?
And we
And
talked
would-
about this,
Would the maintenance be
that's what I was gonna
by
say.
Dean, right? And
We're comfortable from Dean's point of view that we can maintain this.
with his
Jet back out.
little jet thing.
And so there's a graded catch basin, right, on
Yep.
the surface as well. So
Yep.
it not only does that, but it's gonna go through there and then it's clean out, access through that.
Right.
It's nice.
And everything's gonna end up going down into the brook.
Ultimately, the way it does now, yeah, ultimately over in the northwest corner here, I think pretty much everything ties in there, so it will still tie into that same place.
Yeah. 'Cause that thing runs constant.
Constantly.
Mr. Proudy can tell you that.
Yep.
So.
Oh,
It'll be a tourist attraction, Proudy Pond. See you over there, Pete.
that's where we'll put the swans.
As long as we're here discussing this, have you guys had any discussions with the town as far as cleaning that ditch? I don't think it's been done for several years. I believe that's the town's one's
It is.
responsibility.
Mr. Barney was the last one to do it.
Yep.
That was a long time ago.
Over here.
You could tell.
I know,
Yes.
David Leclerc and Roland Donaldson had gone down probably 18 months ago, just before the last winter, or the winter before, and they raked it all out, got it moving, so.
I always.
But it may be something that the town, you know, maybe we can approach the town about dredging it, you know.
If you're talking about.
In our backyard.
Yeah, so I have a house on Jones Park, I also have one on Brown Avenue. Both have 15-inch culverts. When they're put in, and there's no water there. The Brown Avenue home, it's almost to the top of the culvert, it doesn't go any lower than that. Is there something that can be done, because there's frogs and mosquitoes
Mosquitoes.
behind Brown Avenue, so that, it runs continuous up past Jake's house and comes to the Dunkin' Donuts area. Is there any way we can lower that, because there should not be water, you know, standing almost completely full in the culvert behind our house on Brown Avenue?
Right.
I talked to Mr. Lopan and he said that you can't go deeper, so it's not going anywhere. Because that pipe's down here, I'll say it over and over again, they're raised at some point. So the other side of the road will stay dry, but whatever. It's the weeds, it's the worst. You walk down there, it's those pond weeds. So it kind of just fills in, and you guys do come in and shave it, clean it. I think it was last year they went through and it all fell in the ditch and blocked it. So we get down in there and clean it. My neighbor was telling me, he was yelling at me, he goes, now my wife's gonna make me clean my ditch. And I'm like, I don't care, I'm not gonna pump this extra 100 gallons. I don't have to. But it does fill up with weeds too. It's not as much, I think it might be deep enough if that's clean.
I believe you brought up a good point. That rail trail in the back, I don't know what kind of drainage there is along that rail trail, if any, but if that could be dropped down, this is another deal. We're not trying to pacify the state with this, but if there's a lot of water on those back lots by the rail trail, you could ditch and drain that area, dump it right into that brook. Might alleviate some of the pressure towards the lots.
Yeah, it's basically from the interstate all the way to that.
Right,
drill bit.
right.
Right, I mean, the interstate is probably the culprit of all this, if we really
Oh,
look
yeah.
back on it, because it's not gonna get created a dam on that side. And then it's a lot of our beliefs that when Bonneville Drive was developed, that the culvert was changed going across First Street. So all of a
That's that nice-
sudden, the water table kind of shifted backwards towards us, so.
I've been there close to 40 years, and when they did that, it's where we noticed water coming back.
I mean, if you look at the elevation of the village and the elevation of the river, I'd love to have somebody explain to me how the whole village is flooded when we're, how many feet above the river? You know what I mean? It's gotta be the iron holding this water
Has to be.
in the village, right? So I don't know if that's a study that,
It's gotta be a big culprit.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree something changed, you know, like I was saying, our Brown Avenue home was pretty dry most of the time back there, you know. I mean, the culvert went in, it was dry, it got backfilled, it was dry, it stayed dry for years, and it's not right now, there's that much water. all the time.
You're on the far end, back end?
24 Brown Avenue.
Okay.
They just did a bunch of work at the beginning of that, right around the numbers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole section of the railroad is being dug out.
Yeah, that ditch is
Very well pacified the state.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
When I cleaned it.
We surveyed this, it's, you know, it's only a foot from either end to end right here.
But if you go down Robin Hood Drive quite a bit further, is there a big elevation drop that you could potentially lower it over?
Maybe, yeah.
Because I remember that summer after that got raised, I think I counted 7 people complaining about putting in beds, popping holes in their basement all of a sudden. When the end by Hannaford was raised, I remember the contractor, the new green pipe, all that got raised. And it did dry out though for the factory over in Providence, that all dried up because the water was running that way. And wheel around, they filled it behind their properties. So the water could come behind your house, there used to be a river. One day, 200 years ago. And then all of a sudden it closed up as you went up further and wheel around, but they had a big water problem. They figured out a way to, they're still doing it there. Now the ditch has to go from Canada to the Dunkin' Donuts, basically. Where it used to run down here.
Right.
I had a video for one of these meetings, 25 years ago. And I brought it in, maybe I left it here, I can't find it. But it showed that water running towards Robin.
Anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns?
Well, it sounds like there's multiple
Multiple
solutions.
things, yeah, multiple solutions. You know, I think the next step is we need to let Andre and his team get that permit in by the end of September or whatever the date is, get it in so we can move ahead and then start having discussions about the other half.
Okay, thank you to the board, the village, and Drake too. Thanks for all your help.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody,
Communication's been great, thank you, everybody.
for coming out and having a good discussion. Thank you, Andre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really,
All
yeah,
set.
thank you very much.
You're welcome
Yeah.
to stay because the police department's on next.
Yeah, no, we're on.
So we don't need any motion or anything, just continue on.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
To be determined, I guess.
All right.
You're up, Matt.
Swanton Village Police Department update with Chief of Police Matthew Sullivan.
Chief Sullivan, don't take this personally.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
good evening.
It's a good sign.
Good discussion.
Bye, birds.
Most people are concerned.
See you later.
There you
Thanks for
go.
having you guys.
Thank you.
All is well.
All right, so looking at the packets for Village of the Town for the month of May, you'll see the top 10 incident types for the village were 16 suspicious incidents, 15 traffic stops, 10 citizen disputes, 9 crashes, 9 family fights, 7 directed patrols, 6 community outreach, 6 threatening, 6 alarm, and 5 agency assists. There were a total of 153 incidents. Out of those 15 traffic stops, there were 4 tickets and 10 warnings issued. You'll notice that those numbers don't line up. There was one that involved a one-ton truck pulling a 53-foot trailer that the officer is still trying to figure out exactly if there's a violation there. So that's why we don't have 15 in total there. 3 tickets and 10 warnings were associated with traffic. There were 9 arrests representing 9 individuals and 9 charges. 2 arrests were associated with traffic enforcement. And then looking at the town for the month of May, you'll see there were a total of 98 incidents. The top 10 incident types were 26 directed patrol, 23 traffic stops, 6 suspicious, 6 motor vehicle, 3 citizen assists, 3 alarms, 3 crashes, 3 threatening, 3 VIN verifications, and 2 animal problems. Out of those 23 traffic stops, there were 7 tickets and 20 warnings issued. All of the tickets and warnings were associated with traffic enforcement. There were 3 arrests representing 3 individuals and 8 charges associated with those arrests, and one of those arrests was associated with traffic enforcement. And 14 additional service hours were provided to the town outside of regular contract hours. Just going over, and we're still suffering staffing issues. Certainly been an uptick in call volume with the break in the weather that we've experienced. And so those two kind of compound the issue with being down 2 full-time, right? We haven't been able to fill the additional full-time position. And then we lost an officer who decided to go part-time, who was a full-time officer. And that's kind of felt by everybody in the organization because that additional workload is spread among the remaining full-time officers. We have had 2 applications recently. One individual picked up an application. He seemed like a really good candidate, was a Marine, did a stint with the Marines, and then is recently back. Worked in the private sector, didn't really care for it that much, and was looking to get into law enforcement. So he took application materials. I haven't seen him come back yet, but that was last week. And then we have another applicant who seems also promising. He just submitted his application materials, but he's more interested in part-time. He's a full-time EMT currently. So he seems like he could be a really good candidate. So those are positives as far as people being interested in the job. The school board got back to me in regard to the SRO associated with the elementary school. They have approved the SRO we kind of pitched. There wasn't really a great appetite for either organization handling a grant itself. And so we pitched, because we have these 2 open positions covering the SRO position for the first school year, and then Missisquoi Valley School District picking up that position for an additional 2 years, so at a minimum 3 years for that SRO in the elementary school. So Superintendent Regibald is actually out of the office currently, but I'm going to touch base with her as far as moving forward with that. But that looks like something we should be able to move forward with, hopefully pretty quickly. And again, we have had that past employee certainly express interest in that SRO position who was looking to come back full-time. So that could be good for us there. And again, I already touched on this, but staffing is still the biggest challenge. Open shifts, right, every day shift, Saturday and Sunday now, without that additional day officer position filled, which has been a challenge. We just are not getting officers filling those shifts on a regular basis. If they do, it's last minute. So quite frankly, it's usually me or Don Gilbert filling those shifts. And so that is a challenge. And then the additional challenge is just, whenever we have an employee who takes vacation, sick time, or training. So for example, training, there's mandatory training that the state pushed out as far as some of our officers go. They decided that at one point when they created the Advanced Roadside Impairment Training, or ARIDE as we call it, officers were grandfathered if they had been working long enough. Now the state has come back and said, no, everybody has to go through that training, or you need a waiver. So I had to send officers to that. Well, that left me alone on a couple day shifts. And a good example of what happens in those circumstances is I had an aggravated domestic come in early in the morning. It took me off the road all day handling that call. So essentially de-policed the village all day dealing with that one issue. Another one of the days where they were in that, it's 2-day training, I was called to a possibly intoxicated male over at McDonald's, dealing with him, find out he has an arrest warrant. So now I have him in custody for over 4 hours, which essentially shut down the police department also, just because we don't have capacity. So that's a good example for, those 4.5 hours, basically de-police the village for half the day.
Right.
So those are challenges. The staffing is certainly a thing because we really don't have a staffing buffer built into our staffing numbers.
So I have a question. What do you do with Dean during the summer?
He's back down. So as of last week, he is down. So that helps us out quite yet.
So you're able to plug him in, like plug and play him where you need him? to
Yeah, I
do,
mean,
like,
he
maybe a
usually-
Sunday
we don't-
shift or
We traditionally don't, we were discussing this earlier this week. We haven't really altered his schedule to keep him on basically a Monday through Friday schedule. But certainly having that extra body is a huge help for both, because currently, prior to Dean being out of school, it was myself and Officer Gilbert on day shift Monday through Friday, and then having to fill those weekend shifts. And with that other extra day officer, then we would go into a rotation, 4-10s with day shift officers, so those shifts on the weekend would be covered.
rotate. Yeah. And then the former employee that you're considering to hire back, you'd have to send him back to get certified, correct?
No, so he still is within the 3-year time period.
Oh,
He
that's
does
good.
have to make up quite a few training hours. So it's a minimum of 90 training hours that he would have to do to get his certification back in good standing. And then the other thing, and kind of in light of that, is we do have the newer part-time officer who's in field training. She's doing very well in field training. And we're hoping still that the Vermont Criminal Justice Council will sign off on a level 3 waiver for her eventually, once she gets through more training and possibly some road experience. But she's got her provisional level 2 currently, so that'll be helpful.
Are you seeing any increased drug activity?
Certainly, and it kind of is one of those things where it pops up and then it shifts. So it hasn't really gone away. I mean, we've done a pretty good job at displacing it out of the locations that we're aware of, but it'll move somewhere else. Sometimes, I mean, it died down for a little while. I think we had a reprieve of maybe about a year, and it picked right back up again. And it's the same story as far as these people, distributors from out of state, coming from these large urban areas. They get embedded with a local, and then they're distributing narcotics out of that residence. So it is a problem, but that's kind of it's the method of operation that I'm familiar with from my 26 years in law enforcement, both in Burlington and here. It's the same method of operation.
God bless you, Chief.
Thank you.
Want to sign a new 10-year contract right now? Thought I'd try. Tim, you ready to come out of retirement detective 20 hours a week?
I'm happy where I am.
John Deere would miss you, but we love to have you.
I don't have anything else.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Ben.
Thank
Fantastic
you,
work,
Chief.
Bill.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Chief.
Yeah.
Have a good evening. Be
Can you
safe.
slide Damon a part-time application on the way by, please? Back row. Part-time is a good way to start, though. No?
You can always hope.
Good night.
Right. And number 9, Swanton Village grant update. The grant specialist Heidi Bridgeville up there.
Heidi.
Thank you for coming, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.
I'm glad the AC came back on. It was getting a little stuffy in here. Well, thanks for giving me a little time. I wasn't really planned. I came in for the stormwater, and so thought it'd be a good idea just to give you a couple updates. So not a full presentation, but just to check in. The last few months have been focused a lot on your electric department. 4 grants were filed for the energy department, so with a big focus on hydro. So updates on that. We applied for a small $30,000 municipal planning grant, similar to what you used for your wet infrastructure study last year. So this would have been for the electric department to look at relocating some lines, etc. That was denied. The good news is the same agency awarded the larger one we had applied for, which is the $60,000 planning study for your hydro plant. So that will be some of the inspections on the important infrastructure that has been under a lot of stress lately. So that will be started as soon as we get a contract. And not a moment too soon. The other grant that we had applied for was for the hydro also, very large grant, $7 million request for the total rehab of the facility, looking at all the turbines, taking them apart, putting them back together, making sure the whole facility is stable, checking on all those things. We were just notified that that offer was rescinded. We applied in February. It's no longer a priority of the administration, so they pulled the plug on that. So, sad news. We could have really used that, but there is still good news that the Department of Public Safety has offered a grant to Vermont Utilities, and that is more of a, that we have a lot of faith in that one coming. So that's a $200,000 project, and that will be also focused on the hydro plant, making sure that some of the things that haven't been looked at in a long time, you do a dam inspection every year, but this would be actually having an engineer with a diving expertise going down and looking and doing an inspection on the surge tank and looking at some of the bigger components. So we have not received an award on that. We're going back and forth on a few things, and we're hopeful that that one will come through. So.
And you said Vermont Utilities
Department of Public Service.
was with the focus on Vermont Utilities?
Yes, I believe they
Is
applied.
GMP included in that?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Just checking.
Just checking. Yep, I think it was divided equitably between the utilities, and the task was just to meet the criteria of what they were willing to fund.
Yep.
So, we should hear something before too long on that. All the other projects, a lot of them are in the works currently. You see your Public Works Department out, they're working on the sidewalk. We have a stormwater project down at Marble Mill. Many things going on. And one of the pages that I gave you was just a summary of the numerous projects going on in the village. This is a very healthy village for the amount of municipal projects, volunteer projects. Some of your volunteer committees are working on Swan Pond, working on beautification. We're collaborating with the Northern Forest Canoe Trail to bring those campsites at Marble Mill and upgrades to the boat ramp above the dam to do an upgrade on that. So that should hopefully happen this summer. And we're going to the DRB this week to get the approval because it's in a floodplain. Even though it's not a big construction project, I still want to make sure it's a good idea. So we will be applying shortly. July 11th is the deadline for the next Bike and Ped program grant, which would fund another small grant project. So Dean would like to extend the project he's doing currently further down to as far as Platt Street. So if we're awarded, that would be a next year project. So that is to be submitted soon. And I also gave you a couple flyers for some big meetings coming up. So you are probably already aware that on July 14th, and Joanne, I don't know if you want to take a shot of the flyer. On July 14th, the State of Vermont Agency of Transportation is coming back to talk to you about the bridge upgrade. And they will be presenting several alternatives to you for repair or in 2028 or a full upgrade in 2032. And there would be different options within each of those choices on how you would proceed. If you would close it, have a detour, you want to alternate traffic. I et cetera, and that would determine your match percentage. So should be a very informative conversation, and then it will be up to the village trustees how you proceed.
Just for the public, our match could be anywhere from 2.5 to 10,
To 10, correct. And
depending on the size of the scope
And
of the
the option
project.
we select.
Yes,
Yep.
and the project price tag will vary greatly depending on what you choose as
Right.
well.
Yeah, hopefully we choose cheap, get a 50-year deal on it, call it a day.
Yes. Well, some of your other projects that have been percolating for a while are at a juncture where the engineers, VHB, will come to the village and do an on-site walkabout with anyone who wants to hear more about that. So this will be on July 31st at 10 a.m. And starting at the Village Green Bandstand, we'll walk over to Merchants Row, look at the proposed changes there, and then Church Street, and then over to the intersection of First and Grant. And you don't have a contract yet, and it won't be, there won't be any proposals for Canada Street yet, but you were awarded $600,000 for work on that street. So it could be something that we touch on at that time, and they could give a brief summary of that area as well. So altogether, really transformative changes that the trustees have supported, really significant improvements, and it's a great boon for economic development, quality of life, transportation improvements, and it should be an interesting conversation. So hopefully some people join us for that.
I would recommend to the board that this be a warned meeting. If you can attend, you should attend.
I agree.
So can we warn that, please? If you're available. And Heidi did not mention, but as part of this, we had multiple members from the state of Vermont do a walkthrough of all of these projects, and then at their insistence, they walked the entire way down to Platt Street to look at the sidewalk condition. And based on that interaction, I'm gonna call it and say we're gonna be funded and we're gonna get some more sidewalk next year.
Oh,
Anybody trip?
It's on camera.
Anybody trip and fall on
I won't
that?
buy into that, I don't know.
Just saying. They were here, and that's a pretty good showing. There's a high likelihood.
Well, it's an excellent project. I would say that in a high traffic area, it ranks very high on the criteria. The only thing working against us is that we were funded last year. So I think that if another town comes in with an equally important project, we might lose to another town. So that is the way I see it. So, and just as a visual for others that are here, this map on the wall, courtesy of Northwest Regional Planning Commission, has the tags of all the projects we have going on currently in the village. So anybody can take a peek anytime you're stopping in. Very healthy activity going on in your village. It's quite a compliment.
May I ask these three if they also believe, like I do, that they're crooked?
I suspect they are crooked. I asked for help putting them up, but I put them up myself so they would be up.
Too bad.
Some of them.
I don't think they're horrible.
They're not. I'm just saying. Crooked.
So, well, we
And
appreciate all your work, and, you know,
Thank you.
in the time you've been here, and you've brought in over $10 million. You know, it's, I mean, it's probably more than 10 million, probably more than 15 million.
I'm
But
not
at the
sure
same time, it's,
exactly. I don't
you
have
know,
the list in front of
anything
me.
over 10, we're happy.
Wait, let's clarify for the record,
That's
because we're on
fantastic.
camera. The open grant list is 5.3 million, but we have 14 million pending, with a high likelihood of receiving much of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's almost $20 million.
Good job, Heidi.
Thank you very much. It puts a lot of pressure on the departments, so they should be commended for stepping up and juggling
Yep.
many projects at a
Many
time.
projects.
Yeah, Dean is definitely having a challenging summer,
Yeah.
and he still has a good sense of humor about it, so
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
you're welcome. That's all I had.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, Heidi.
You're welcome.
Good night. Stay warm.
Good
Sorry.
night.
Number 10, approval for 2025 electric rate increase up to 3%.
Diane, I believe you have the wording for a motion.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
I don't got it.
and this goes back to what we did about a month ago. So I'll make the motion that we file for an electric rate increase of up to 3% this coming summer.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and a second to approve the 2025 electric rate increase up to 3%. Any further discussion about electric rates increase?
They did.
Okay,
Last month.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Which will be our first rate increase in 10 years.
10 years.
Our last,
Not our last one. Number 11, village manager update. Bill, you're on deck.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
Let's start with the tree removal grant in the park. They're almost done. I think it looks a lot better. It clears everything out. The canopy is much improved. You know what? I don't remember looking to verify all 10, 11 were removed, but there's still a little bit of work to be done. And then Dean's crew, after stump grinding, will go in and do what he can to plant in time for the car show. So should be more room now as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you increase the number of attendees. The Lower Swanton Dam, let's shift gears to that. The requests for proposals have been published. Bids are due back by July 17th. For those watching at home or those that are curious, again, this is just for us to gauge what's possible out there and get an idea of what the costs are going to be. There are people reaching out that are asking what, if any, the restrictions are. So I know I've heard from multiple people that ask about a welded frame, you know, a more permanent deck structure, and then putting something in place with a crane. But at this point, as a reminder, it is not a budgeted item. We're just trying to determine if it's something that we can do this year, or get an idea for what we have to set aside in the budget for next year.
Talking about the overload?
Yes.
We could probably incorporate a paddle wheel on that, put a shaft on there and generate electricity while we're looking on. Never mind.
Okay, all right, so that's the Lower Swanton Dam. Let's move over to the brush pile. Everybody, I think, is well aware that that's been closed for quite some time based on overuse. Heidi's reached out, and there are 3 firms that specialize in wetlands surveying, one of which has already done a site visit, 2 more are going to do that. So if you recall, as you drive in on the right-hand side, there needs to be a wetlands delineation, and 50 feet from that, a buffer zone. Those have to be marked by signs. Anything that we have pushed over that line will be required ultimately, in all likelihood, to bring that back and then maintain that buffer zone line for all eternity. It looks like on first blush that we're probably not substantially, if at all, in the wetlands, but in likelihood we're over the buffer zone. That's what we think at this point. So more to follow, but we're mandated to do that. So we'll get the 3 proposals back. We'll choose one. We'll get a motion from the board to proceed when we get those, and we'll move forward.
Question.
Yes.
I've had a few residents reach out to me as to where they can dump their brush.
Yep.
So,
Go ahead.
so at our last meeting, I announced that Hamlin's on Route 7 is
Hamlin?
taking brush.
Hudak.
Hamlin. Hudak.
Hudak's, okay.
Yeah. So for a big trailer or dump truck, it was $20. Pickup truck load was $10. Anything smaller than a pickup truck was by donation. And Dean is picking that brush in the village as time permits.
Okay. No schedule or anything, just
No.
as time permits?
Just put in the right of way,
Yep,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it is being picked up.
yeah, those reasonable fees.
Yep.
Not as nice as
for-
before, but
right,
reasonable.
so those who have a lot, you know, Hudex is a pretty good price.
And the service remains the same. If you're a village resident, you have a little bit that needs to be picked up, we'll get there, we'll do it, and of course, that's free. Other questions about the brush pile?
Nope.
Okay. Public Works. So, while I cannot identify who was selected, we have made an offer that at least verbally has been accepted for a gentleman that will start in 7 to 10 days. There's been no background completed yet, so it's not finalized, but it looks like a likely successful hire for Public Works. So they're excited about that. By the next meeting, we'll be able to identify that person, because hopefully that will be their first day. We'll skip this next one for now. Electric Department, AMI, again, I know that Dwayne was in and briefed everybody on the status, but there isn't a day goes by that we don't make some fairly significant progress toward AMI for both electric and water meters. So that's, I know it's a slow grind, but it truly is. Again, it's a 5-year project that's much closer to completion than it is to the formation of that thought process. So we're getting there. Moving over to water, if you recall, they had a safety inspection for there and the reservoir, so literally every recommendation from the safety inspector at League of Cities and Towns has been implemented, with the exception of 2 signs that have been ordered but have to be installed at the reservoir. And then they got the normal work. They added all the media into the filter, so that's done and updated. They have a UV expert to come in to fix some issues with the UV system, and then there's a tremendous number of normal routine maintenance projects. Wastewater. So it does continue to be on pace. It's not without its difficulty, but we knew that going in, that you're doing a tremendous amount of work in a very confined space with all kinds of things going on. So we do believe that's on pace for the end of this year and may extend to the second week of January, depending on when certain things come in near the end of the project. And it's okay if it comes in at the end of January. It truly extends the first full payment on the project for the bond 1 more year.
Yep.
So that's a deadline that we can live with if it misses by 2 weeks.
Yep.
Big shout out and congratulations to Dylan DuPont for passing his Vermont Domestic Municipal Pollution Abatement Grade 5 test.
Good job, Billy.
Highest certification you get in the state of Vermont.
Wow, that's awesome.
So both Jason and Dylan now are 5s. Again, the highest you can get in wastewater. And then let's hope, I'll say it on camera, I know Dylan watches every time religiously, that they remain loyal. Don't take that, because it's actually portable nationwide for any wastewater plant. So kudos to them, and they also have the highest certification that we need to operate water as well. So that's a good thing.
Good job.
Congrats.
Thank you, congratulations.
For the B6 bridge presentation, we announced it, it's online. I want to make sure it's okay with the trustees for me to make a formal invite through Brian to the select board to be here, because they should certainly, they should warn it and be here, although I don't think they really have to warn it, right? Okay. NEPA conference. So again, we should be proud of the fact, and we are, that Lynn is a board member. So the NEPA conference this year comes home to us. It's in Burlington. So it's really a chance for us to take advantage of attending at cost that we wouldn't have to deal with out of state. The conference is August 17th through the 20th, but the 17th is a Sunday. Really, that's kind of a formation day. Lynn, of course, will be there all 4 days. And the 20th also is a very light day. So we're trying to determine interest from the Board of Trustees on who would like to attend. In all likelihood, you would travel down on Monday the 18th. You would determine whether or not you want to stay overnight in Burlington, and then attend sessions on the 19th. So those are the 2 packed days, the 18th and the 19th. So we don't need an answer right now, but we need an answer probably within the next week or so to make reservations.
Where in Burlington they have it, you know, Bill?
Hotel Champlain.
Yeah.
Where?
Hotel Champlain.
Hotel Champlain, wherever that is.
down there.
Right
by the
downtown
waterfront.
Burlington.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So again, just send me an email if you are interested and want to go, what days, if you want to be overnight.
Yeah, good communion.
You can commute, for sure. Yep, certainly you would on the Monday, but at most, I would say a one-night hotel stay if you want to avail yourselves to evening events that they have. Okay, last thing. Let's talk about the hydro. This might take a bit. So, the rubber bladder, we all know that the experts came in and made a small repair on the corner closest to the roadway. And the experts from Utah, and they truly are experts, came in and they did an evaluation after that and did a low pressure test. They walked the entire length, both inside and outside, and did a visual inspection of the dam. And the next morning, they left. And that very day that they left on a jet plane, we had a massive tear in the seam on the opposite side. So I think most people, I think you've all gone up there and you've seen it laying down, and it's got a pretty significant tear. We will know more starting tomorrow. We have a call with the vendor about what is even possible. The vast majority of this, I would say that you would want to reserve the right to have an executive session. But for the public, next steps, we're going to know more every single day on what the options are. What we definitively know is no matter what the choice is, that bag, because of where it's split and the fact that water and ultimately ice are going to get in there, it has to be removed regardless of any decision before winter hits.
Mm-hmm.
So that process, since we've been through it before, includes a drawdown of another 3 feet to get to the bottom. The road that the Army Corps of Engineers, or PC Construction, based on Army Corps standards, put in, when they put the bladder in, still is probably 80% there, so they would have to build it up a little bit more. Whatever vendor is chosen would essentially go on and take it out, unbolt every bolt, fold it up, hoist it out there. We'd have to follow the same process. We'd have to get permits to put the road in on the far side from the dam site, and those are Army Corps of Engineer permits with permission essentially from the state of Vermont, but I don't think they're separate permits. I don't think those are terribly onerous in an emergency. I don't think they're going to take long, but that's kind of the process.
So there's a stone row parallel to the dam, just below.
Correct. Yep. So that road bed is just below about at the end, about literally 3.5 feet below where the concrete is, and they drive right out there.
Yeah.
So again, that call, more information starts tomorrow, the 24th, and we'll get everything together. Worst case scenario, we have to call an emergency session to talk about a contract and moving forward. I think the timing might align with the next meeting, just because I think it's gonna take that long to get there. So if it's within a day or two, we'll get things tentatively lined up and say they have to hold until we get a contract in place. I'm not even sure if we can put it all together in 2 weeks.
Right.
Because there's a lot of moving parts.
No.
And unless there's other stuff to talk about related to that now, I would hold until executive session. And that's all I have.
Number 12, any other necessary business?
Sure.
Nope.
Nothing necessary.
Look at that. First time this year.
Number 13, executive session for personnel or legal matter.
You need that personnel
We
or
do,
is it?
yep.
Okay. I move that we find that we enter into executive session for the trustees to receive confidential legal and personal information for which the premature disclosure of it to the general public would clearly place the trustees and others at substantial disadvantage.
One second.
All right, we have a first and a second to enter into an executive session. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Executive session. Motion carried.
I did.